transfer portal. Still got some juice in it, man. Dylan Edwards, we jumped in the portal, I believe it was a little over 24 hours ago. Already a couple of schools that are in the running for one of the top, I believe, offensive skill players in the transfer portal. And yes, he's a running back. Yes, he can carry the mail for you. I think he proved that last year at different points with Colorado. But I think he also has another element to him with what he can do out of the backfield for you. Like, I think some schools are viewing Dylan Edwards as kind of that slot receiver mold, a true Swiss Army knife. Caught 36 balls last year in Colorado's offense. A big part of why he transferred, from what we're hearing, is he wants to be in a position where he can carry the mail, because Colorado ran the ball 40% of the time last year, one of the lowest percentages in the country. The schools in the sweepstakes right now, the big three we're hearing per Steve Wiltfong and Pete Nakos: Kansas. Remember, he's from the state of Kansas. Kansas State, where he was committed at one point in time during his high school career. And Texas A&M, currently in the running right now for Dylan Edwards. Now, that's not an all-encompassing list. I've been told Nebraska is a school that may end up making a pretty strong push for Dylan Edwards. Georgia, on paper, would make a lot of sense. Would Dylan Edwards be RB1 at Georgia? Probably not, but I think there's definitely a role you could find for him out there in Athens. If he goes to Nebraska and Dylan Raiola ends up being the starting quarterback out there, which, full transparency, I believe he will be nice to check it down to a dude who can take it to the house for you. Like, having an outlet when it's not there with what you want to call vertically, and you can just throw it down to Dylan Edwards, be a nice way to live, because Dylan Edwards is going to get you 7 yards plus more likely than not whenever he catches the ball in space. Speaking of catching the ball in space, man, KeAndre Lambert-Smith was one of the most explosive weapons on the Penn State offense a season ago. He has taken his talents to Auburn, Alabama, and the Auburn social team is as dialed in as it gets, because they posted a elite clip yesterday. I believe it was Sammy Coates, where he throws the Texas A&M defender down to the ground when he was playing at Auburn. So a nice little subtweet there from our friends on the Plains. This is massive in every single sense of the word for Auburn. We talked about the potential of him ending up with Hugh Freeze and in that offense. The complexion of the scheme, to me, changes drastically by adding in a guy of his caliber, because we feel pretty good about who Cam Coleman's going to be. Like, we all watched the spring game. We all see what he can do with those 50-50 balls. Thing is, we weren't the only ones who watched that spring game. Other defensive coordinators that are going to play Auburn also saw that spring game and will be able to see how much of a threat he is on the outside. So what are they going to do? Common sense, you give him extra attention. Well, it becomes a lot more difficult to give him extra attention when you have another receiver out there that can hurt you, which is, of course, KeAndre Lambert-Smith. Averaged 12 yards of reception last year at Penn State. Really explosive player. He's got speed to burn. I'm excited to see what he does in that offense. The feeling now, we'll talk more about Auburn later, but the feeling now is, all right, Peyton Thorne, there's becoming less and less margin for excuses for us to make for you. Now, Peyton Thorne's not making excuses. I promise you nobody within that building in Auburn, Alabama is making excuses. But the feeling right now is, okay, if Peyton Thorne is going to be the guy for us to win football games here at a high level, he's got what he needs now. That backfield is stocked. They've got weapons on the perimeter now. You got a better, I think, setup when it comes to your offensive approach. So this is massive for Auburn, and I think it changes the ceiling of what they're going to be offensively here in 2024. Simeon Barrow Jr., a guy we've talked about a lot, is a big defensive lineman from Michigan State. How big? 6'3", 290 pounds. The phrase you hear a lot during this part of the year when it comes to the transfer portal and guys of Simeon Barrow's stature is, hey, guys like him, they don't grow on trees, man. No doubt. He's taking his time with this decision. He graduates this Friday, I believe, from Michigan State. LSU, Miami, Missouri, all getting visits. Texas, Oklahoma, Florida State are fighting for that final visit, is what we're hearing right now. This is the most proven commodity, in my opinion, in the transfer portal at his position. 110 career tackles, 18.5 TFLs, 30 starts. So you're not guessing with what you get with him. He's played in the Big Ten Conference, a line of scrimmage league, and produced. So whether he ends up at a Miami, an LSU, a Missouri, or a Texas, Oklahoma, like any of those schools, wherever he ends up at, you're not wondering how it's going to translate. You know what he is, you know who he is, and you know what you're getting. If you want to win in November, if you want to win, heck, in January for national championships, you got to have guys like Simeon Barrow Jr. playing up front for you. So obviously he's being very, very highly recruited, and it sounds like that thing is going to develop slowly based on this timeline with his graduation and taking another visit. Now, his teammate, Derek Harmon is also getting a ton of attention. 6'5", 320 pounds. So he's a bit of a monster himself. Same thing with him. He is a proven production kind of player. Played in 25 games during his career at Michigan State, 6.5 tackles for a loss. Now, he's interesting because he entered the transfer portal window during the winter, took some visits. Miami was after him during that initial cycle, and he since withdrew his name from the portal, came back, and now is back in the portal in this spring window. Visited USC, going to visit Miami. Oklahoma would love to lend his services. I have to believe that the same schools that are after Simeon Barrow Jr. are also after Derek Harmon. Now, I don't know if this is at all on the table for any of these schools, but if there was a world where Simeon Barrow Jr. and Derek Harmon are texting and sort of having conversations about what they're going to do next, and they just want to go somewhere together, no idea if that's going to happen, but if they wanted to go somewhere together, that would be monstrosity for whoever ends up landing them. That would be a very nice feather in the cap of your defensive line unit. So keep an eye on that. Two big dogs on the defensive line. I mean big in the literal sense, close to 300 pounds and 6'3" plus for both of them. We'll see what happens there. So keep an eye on that. Jaden Rashada, before we got on the air here, man, he announced his commitment to the Georgia Bulldogs. And we talked about this on previous shows. I love everything about this for Jaden Rashada. Like, full transparency, we felt pretty bad for Jaden Rashada with the whole way that his high school recruitment went and the whole thing that happened sort of in a wonky nature with the NIL deal with Florida. Ends up going to Arizona State. Has success at times, but understands, hey, I probably need to go somewhere else, sit for a year, develop, self-assess, all those things. Love that. Shows maturity, shows humility. From what I was told, again, this was not an NIL-driven recruitment for him. I'm excited to see what he becomes, man. It's a win-win for everyone because if you're Georgia, you just added another talented quarterback to your room that has Gunnar Stockton, that has Ryan Puglisi. Oh, by the way, you got Carson Beck, who's going to have a very strong case to be the first quarterback taken this time next year. And now you add a 4-star player like Jaden Rashada. It's a win for Georgia because you have a quarterback who's going to add competition to that room. Iron sharpens iron. The way that Georgia does things from a competition perspective, from a position room perspective, they throw as much talent as possible into a position room. They let them fight it out gladiator style, and then the player that walks out of that thing, the starter, is the one who earned it, who competed under the pressure, and who was able to elevate their play against such strong competition. So for Jaden Rashada, you're going to develop whether you like it or not. Like, being at Georgia, you buy into Kirby Smart's way of doing things, and you play with some of the best players in the country on the scout team with you. I mean, that thing is stacked with 4- and 5-star recruits giving a look to the ones during the week. And, oh, by the way, you're playing against 4- and 5-stars during the week as well. You have no choice but to get better, and that's going to be massive for him long-term. And if you win the job at Georgia after Carson Beck leaves this coming season, obviously he's not playing this year. It's Carson Beck's team. It's Carson Beck's job. But if you show up next year and win the job, like, you're set up for success. I mean, that's going to do wonders for you when it comes to the NFL and do wonders for you when it comes to how you're assessed at the NFL draft process. We've seen that with multiple guys. So, bottom line, win-win for everyone. We're happy for Jaden Rashada, and I'm sure the folks in Athens, Georgia are also very happy to land a quarterback of his caliber in that room. Last one to talk about here, James Brockmeyer. He's a 4-star caliber cat from the class of 2021. He entered the portal with a do not contact tag. Now, James Brockmeyer was competing for that center spot in Tuscaloosa. Looks like he felt a certain way about how that was going to shake out. He's 6'3", 285 pounds. He went in there, as I mentioned, with a do not contact tag. He's from Fort Worth, Texas. Now, for those of y'all that don't know, a do not contact tag essentially means, hey, listen, I'm in the portal. Don't call me. I'll call you if we're interested. To me, this feels a lot like a TCU for James Brockmeyer, but we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. But offensive linemen, man, they do not grow on trees, much less offensive linemen that have come from an SEC program. So that would be massive for TCU if they're able to land him, but we'll obviously keep a pulse on that as it shakes out. Transfer portal continuing to roll. Keep it locked right here for all your portal coverage. We'll make sure we're attacking this thing together. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.